If you're building your ABA company and you're tired of guessing, this is for you. We built the EBCBA blueprint to give you real structure, systems, and support without the fluff. Details are in the description.
My name is Michael. I'm one of the founders at Alpaca Health, where we help BCBAs start, launch, and grow their independent ABA practices. We do everything non-clinical. So we credential and contract you under our group contracts with favorable rates. We run your practice, scheduling, billing, all of that we do for you, verification of benefits, being on hold with insurance. We provide you with an all-in-one technology platform. It has scheduling and data collection, but also payroll, intake, and billing all in one. And I think the most important part, if you're just starting out, is we get you paid. So you don't have to have a huge amount of money in the bank, savings. We get you paid every 2 weeks. You'll always have enough money in the bank to pay yourself and to pay your BTs, even if insurance delays their payments. And so the idea is we take away all the risk of running an ABA practice, all the risk of dealing with insurance, and all the administrative headaches, so that BCBAs out there can start a business, but really stay focused on the clinical mission that led you to get into the field, that lead you to deliver such awesome, high quality clinical care. This is a webinar series we're doing. It's informational, going through everything from credentialing to accounting. We're doing a webinar next week about tax deductions to just give some information to BCBAs about how to start their practices. So if this is your first webinar, welcome. Thank you for joining. If it's your second or third, thanks for continuing to stay on with us. And if you have any questions about how to start your practice, please feel free to reach out to myself or the Alpaca team. But I'm going to hand it over to Derreck, who has an awesome presentation for us about HIPAA, IT compliance, and really making sure that you're thinking about having a compliant, secure, help keep patient records private and confidential from day one. Really excited to have him on here, and I'll pass it over to him to give a presentation.
Just to give a little bit of background on myself and my relationship with Michael. Michael and I connected on mission. Our mission is to help ABA owners stay independent. We're on the side of the clinical ownership. There's this big shift that's happened in the ABA market, and it continues to move towards large, big box ABA companies, private equity backed organizations getting in, and I call them profit pirates, right? They're going after the money. One of the things that Michael and I really connected on is our heart for the clinical entrepreneur. If you're starting it for the right reasons and you're really there to help the kiddos, we're on your side. One of my companies is WOM Technology Management Group, and we provide cybersecurity, IT services, and compliance management for small business ABA companies. We've recently launched our learning management platform for business training and education, giving you the tools to build your ABA business and be successful and compete with the big private equity companies. So thank you for being here today. Compliance in general, it's about protecting your practice. We're not here to scare you. We're here to make the compliance program at your company simple, affordable, and manageable. So you don't need to be a tech expert. You don't have to get a degree in technology to actually be compliant. You can manage this and be in control of it. This should be an empowering experience to you, not an overwhelming experience. I'm going to blast through these slides as quickly as I can because I want to make sure that we have some time at the end for some Q&A. I want to cover some of the common things on what's happening now, what this actually means for you, and what you can do about it. Keep in your mind that compliance isn't just about HIPAA and your state laws and checking these boxes. It's about running a sustainable, ethical, and well-governed business. This is how you gain success and sustainability in the ABA market, not just being compliant, meeting the bare minimums. So most of you are doing everything. We're CEOs, we're business owners, so we have to wear a lot of hats. You're dealing with clinical outcomes, hiring, billing, insurance, and now we've got HIPAA in there. Alpaca is taking care of a lot on the back end, like our billing and contracts, but there's a lot that we still have to manage as business owners, and we need to make sure we're managing these as functional areas of our business. We don't want to have our entire company and everything that we're investing into our business reliant on one provider. So you always want to have a contingency plan for everything. And you didn't become a BCBA to manage servers. You didn't become a BCBA so that you could go out and deal with contracts like what Michael and his team are taking care of with you. But odds are you're going to be wearing at least 5-10 hats at your company. You're the chief this officer, the chief that officer, along with being the chief executive officer. The good news on the compliance side is that you are not expected to do everything today. You don't need to fix everything in your business. There are some major things you want to make sure you don't fall victim to, but you don't have to go from 0 to 100 on the compliance scale overnight. That's not the goal here. So we want to show you how to make real progress one step at a time and make sure that your business is protected. This isn't about more work. This is about getting more out of what you already have and then making incremental changes as you go. So think of your business as a human body. Each organ or system has a specific role. Clinical, operations, HR, finance, tech, ethics, compliance, all of those programs are organs within your organization. If you go through our blueprint courses with ABA Impact, we refer to these organs in your business as functional areas. All of them are interconnected. Each depends on the others. You can't ignore one without damaging your business because they're all tied together. Today, we're going to zoom in specifically on the functional area of compliance. Remember that this impacts everything, your clinical decisions, your tools that you're using for technology, your staff behavior, your company culture, billing and finance, communications. Literally everything touches compliance and is affected by your compliance program. We're not going for perfection here. We're looking for incremental alignment and awareness, making adjustments over time and filling gaps as you go. So we like to do what we call tabletop exercises. And this is actually a requirement for the HIPAA HHS security risk assessment. We have to go through a tabletop exercise. When some people hear that, they think they're picturing the war room at the Pentagon and there's generals standing around a table with the pieces out like a big chessboard under these bright lights in this dark room. And it's this scary kind of thing. And you think, I got 3 or 4 employees. I'm a BCBA and I'm doing solo direct service. I don't need to do tabletop exercises. Well, they're not that complex, but they are extremely important. A tabletop exercise is just thinking through a scenario. As you're building your systems in your business, these are the types of scenarios you want to think through. Imagine for this exercise that your practice management system is down. It's inaccessible. Things happen like this all the time. It could be ransomware. It could just be a system outage. There are very large companies like CDK Global, the practice management system for the auto industry that runs all the dealerships. Ford, General Motors, Toyota, all the big ones. CDK Global is probably in itself larger than all of the companies that are in the ABA service provider market combined. Their system went down for about 6 weeks and you couldn't go to the GM dealership, Chevy, Cadillac, any of the Ford dealerships, Toyota. You couldn't even get an oil change, much less buy a car or get tires. You couldn't do anything during this time frame at an auto dealership, and billions were lost. And now the auto industry is doing this as a tabletop exercise. They're paying attention to what happens if these systems go down. What do you do first? Who is it that you call? What is your team going to experience? What are your clients going to experience? These are the kind of things that you want to think about. And when you get beyond that, you want to think about what the regulators want. And what they want is documentation and response. They want you to be prepared to handle these kinds of things. Now, that comes from a compliance standpoint. From a business standpoint, as an owner, you're thinking about when this bad thing happens, how do I go from 100% performance to 60% performance, say? It's still going to be a rough time. When you're in a town or in a service area where you're going from 100% performance to 40% or 60% performance, but your competition goes to 0, This is how you end up quickly growing and adding BCBAs and RBTs who are leaving other companies and coming to a place that is still at least operational. This isn't just important for your business from a compliance standpoint. It's important from a financial and business continuity standpoint. In these situations, your clients really want transparency and reassurance. There's a bad thing that happened. This is how it's affecting us. This is how we're getting through it. And this is what you can expect over the coming weeks or months, however long this thing is going to take. If you're the company that is prepared for this kind of thing and you can handle it well, it sets you apart as a high performance company. To get there, you don't need a bunch of fancy tools or a full-time person to manage this for you. You just need a plan, and that's free. It's a pen, it's a piece of paper, or it's a Word document. You can sit down and you make your plan and make sure that you have a safety net at that 40 or 60% mark where your performance is only going to fall so far. All right, so things to consider specifically around data loss prevention. Please understand what your state laws are for record retention for minors. I talk to people who are on the health compliance boards for their state. One was Pennsylvania. There's 11 people in the whole state who are on this board. And one of them I was talking to, and I asked how long they're keeping their records for. And she said 7 years. I believe in Pennsylvania, the rule is 5 years after the age of majority, 23 years. So what that means for ABA, we're dealing with minors almost all the time. When we have a client who comes in and they're of a certain age group, how long do we need to make sure that we retain their records for? Because they can come back anytime in that retention period and ask for their records. If you don't have them, you're now liable for those records and can be sued. You can be fined. You can be shut down for not retaining your records properly. The number one thing is know what your state requirements are and make sure that you have a plan to keep all of that data safe for at least that period of time. When we're looking at these situations, we want to look at it through the different lenses. We teach this in our Blueprint series. As you're building out your systems, your clinical model, your operations, your technology decisions, you want to look at them through all the lenses. We talked about those functional areas, the organs of your company. Every time you build something, you want to look at it through the compliance lens. Is this going to meet our state requirements, HIPAA requirements, the requirements in our payer contracts, because that can change things as well. If you have a situation where if you're working with Medicaid in your state might require you to provide records within a certain period of time when a client requests them. So HIPAA will say 30 days and refer to your state. Your state could say you need to provide them within 15 business days. And often we see people going to a law firm, having them write up their policies and procedures before they have their payer contracts. All of those policies and procedures are written, and then they get a payer contract. Their policies are written for 10 days. The payer contract says 5 days. Now all of your policies and procedures are wrong. So these are things that you really want to make sure that you're building yourself and looking through all those lenses. In a situation where we have our tabletop exercise for data loss prevention, you cannot access your practice management system. You want to consider, how are we going to continue to operate? How are we going to make sure that if we never get back in, we still have those records somewhere else? And how are we going to make sure that we are compliant with state, federal, and payer requirements? Let's zoom out a little bit and talk about what's happening in the industry in healthcare. These are actual real breaches with real costs, and it falls on small business. A couple of scenarios we've had recently are Anthem, Community Health Systems, and Change Healthcare. Change was probably the most well-known one in the ABA market. Anthem got a $16 million fine, and a few 100,000 records were exposed due to simple failures in their protection systems. Community Health Systems had a bunch of records stolen. Basically just a really good example of how easy it is for a bad guy to get into these large systems. They're a big target because they have a lot of data. Small businesses are a big target because they're low security and still have a large amount of data. Remember that if you're in any kind of pediatric services in healthcare, you generally have at least double and usually triple PHI. You have the kiddo, at least one parent, that's double, usually two parents, that would be triple. So you have all three of those individuals' PHI in your systems. Bad guys know that, and they also know that small businesses have lower security standards and they're easier to get into. So cyber crime has evolved pretty drastically over the last 20 years. It used to be viruses on computers, people playing pranks or just see if they can get into a system. Now we have to deal with AI-driven attacks. Viruses, simple stuff in the early days. Now we've got AI that can pretend it's your grandmother. It's a very complex world that we live in now. And most small businesses have what we refer to as tech debt or security debt. Business is doing the same thing it was 10 or 15 years ago, and the whole world is changing around us. The world is moving. If your business is standing still, the world is going to roll over you, right? So you want to make sure that you're always making incremental progress in all these areas. Most businesses have not kept pace with the changes in cybercrime. The other side of this is we also have a pretty big experience gap in the cybersecurity field. Everybody's got less than 10 years of experience that are coming in. So we have the old school guys and gals that are all retiring, and then we have the new people coming in, and there's a gap between them where either you have a ton of old experience or very little new experience. So it's a challenge to even find people to work for you in the cybersecurity industry. So let's talk about managing our vendors. We are only as secure as the vendors that we work with. The more we trust them, the more we're depending on them to be secure on their side. I want to talk about a law firm, but this evolves into an ABA-related issue. One mistake, even outside of your practice, can still impact you and your clients. This is what we refer to as upstream or downstream risk. The risk upstream from you is happening at your vendors or other people outside of your company. If they have an issue and that becomes your issue, it can affect the people downstream from you, which could be vendors or clients that get those hacked emails from your hacked account, right? So this is a situation that we dealt with last quarter of 2023. This is a company that we did a risk assessment for, made recommendations, wasn't in the budget. About a year later, they circled back with us and said, we've got this issue. They had a lawyer, and law firms are a big target for cyber criminals because the bad guys like to get into their case information and then use that to extort the attorney. If it's a family lawyer like this one, they say, hey, we've got all of your records, and then we know who the soon-to-be X is. We can take all of your records and give it to them if you don't pay us $1 million. It's a big extortion ring. They can do multiple things. Once they hack somebody, they can extort the lawyer, like what I just described. They can hack the lawyer's clients or some combination of both of those. So the way you want to protect yourself here is making sure that you're asking questions before you're signing with the provider, making sure that if you're going to work with somebody, they're aware of the risks. Do they have cyber liability insurance? Have they done a recent risk assessment? Companies that you work with that are providing any kind of software, they're going to have all this stuff readily available for you. But if you're working with a smaller provider, make sure that even your dentist, ask them what they're doing to secure your data. People vote with their wallets and listen to what their clients say. So when you're talking to your dentist and you ask them about what they're doing about their security, once 2 or 3 people start asking, maybe they'll start thinking about it. But this is the raw materials for identity theft. So when these bad guys get this data, they sell it on dark web markets and make tons of money. PHI is extremely valuable because you have so much information about those clients. When this law firm got taken down, they were extorted. When the bad guys got in, they saw all their contacts, and they have the same kind of CRM and market research tools that regular companies have. Cybercrime is its own industry. They have their own infrastructure. They research who these people are. They found ABA company, big 3-location company, and decided to target them as a downstream target once they figured out who they were. 3 locations, 60 or so employees. They do a little bit of research online and figure out that this lawyer is the divorce attorney for one of the owners of this ABA company. Let's talk a little bit about the data loss prevention side. So we're talking about the lawyer. These are our providers on this end. but I want to shift to our actual systems that we're using for data storage, right? So we're talking about a bad thing that can happen that doesn't require anybody doing anything malicious. And it's also a good moment to talk about managing our SaaS providers, like our practice management systems, our healthcare management systems, whatever you have that has any kind of PHI on it or anything valuable to your business. This is actually what happened to my IT company, WOM. February of 2024, Josh, who's also on this call with us, called me. I'm in an airport. He said, I can't get into any of our contracts. It's not loading up. He ran it by one of our help desk technicians, and that ended up at our CTO's desk, our chief technology officer. Then I get another phone call about 40 minutes later saying, hey, all of our contracts with all of our customers, all of our leases, our fleet vehicle purchases, everything is gone. Adobe's response is they escalated it about 3 levels up until they finally just said, hey, our bad. So sorry, lost all your data. Their terms and conditions say that they're not responsible for any of this. So our entire business is basically gone. All of our value is gone. All of our legal protections are gone. And Adobe says, my bad. Luckily, we don't trust these types of providers. So we have backups of everything. It was a struggle for a couple of days to get all of our contracts gathered up again. And we left Adobe and went to another provider. Now, we got these 2 different types of threats coming from 2 different types of providers. And we'll get into a little bit deeper what the lawyer caused at this ABA company. This is the family law group that was captured and extorted. And this led to a business email compromise at this ABA company. The law firm's emails were hacked. They were aware of case numbers, everything about this ABA owner's case with their ex who was not paying alimony. They sent an email that was being drafted by the lawyer regarding a motion for contempt of court because this person's not paying their alimony. So they're making a motion for contempt of court. So it had her case number on it, had an attachment that showed the motion. They knew what the lawyer was about to send to her. So they figured she was probably expecting it. When she got the email from the lawyer, it went through their spam filters because he's a known sender. The Monday before Thanksgiving on vacation, she's on her personal computer and she's trying to open this attachment and it's not opening because it's not actually the motion. It's installing bad software on her computer that is allowing the bad guys to steal stuff from her. In the meantime, they were doing a transition from Rethink to Central Reach, and they had a bunch of data downloaded on this computer, her personal, unprotected computer outside of the company. She's clicking on an attachment that looks like it's from a clean email. The attachment won't open. There was also a OneDrive link in the email that she clicked on, put in her Microsoft 365 login. She was the administrator for this Microsoft 365 account. They were self-managing their IT. So when the bad guy got in, they got everything on her computer. They got her administrative login. She did not have multi-factor authentication set up, and they took everything in this business's Microsoft 365 and in their Central Reach. This is a major exposure. January 19th of the following year, Agent Jones with the FBI office showed up at my office wanting to have a conversation about their investigation into this company. So it became a pretty serious thing. That company, last I heard, had shrunk from 3 locations down to 1. Major catastrophic impact just from somebody getting into their email and from them working with a provider who wasn't very careful with their own security. This is just a scenario to think about and consider what you're doing on your end to make sure that you're securing your company against impacts like this. So here's a quick rundown of how we analyze a business and decide how we can start to reduce and transfer risk in this business. When we do a financial impact analysis, there's a couple of things to consider. Reduction in performance or production, going from 100% to 60% is better than going to 0%. How long the business will be disrupted depends on what redundant systems you have in place. I have a strong belief this is going to happen in the ABA market soon. We're due for a major outage for one of our practice management systems somewhere. So the key is, can't prevent it. We need to make sure that we're planning for it. But depending on how long that system is down will determine the actual days of disruption. Sometimes we can't control that. One thing we can control as business owners is our percentage of lost production, making sure that we have a redundant system in place where we can continue to operate. We can continue session notes and data collection on paper if one of our technology systems doesn't work. What we teach in the Blueprint course is how to build your systems within your business to run without any of your performance increasers like practice management and billing systems. Design as much of your business to run without those things as possible, and then add those things as performance enhancers, not making your business dependent on them. This will give us an idea of what our lost revenue is if we know that we're not going to be able to do certain things for a certain period of time. We know that revenue will be lost or at least delayed. If you can't keep your employees working, you're going to have lost labor. If you don't want your employees to leave and go work elsewhere during this outage, you're going to need to continue to pay them. Having a plan for this when a major outage happens that affects you and other providers in the area is going to enable you to move your business forward. It's going to be a tough time, but if you're able to continue operations, this is where other companies who can't are going to lose their employees and hopefully end up working for you. So this should be an opportunity to move your business forward as the chaos is happening around you. Below this white line is what it costs to actually investigate an incident and notify people. So depending on your state, it's usually around 500 records. 500 records sounds like a lot, but it's nothing. Businesses that have been in business for 1 year and have one email mailbox get hacked usually break through that 500 record limit pretty quickly. So this is when you're automatically going to be adding in incident investigations that start at $60,000, notification and crisis management that start at $90,000. Then you can start tacking on your regulatory fines, your penalties from the state, from the Office of Civil Rights through HIPAA. And then you've got potential class action lawsuits where clients could get together and sue you. Definitely something you want to avoid, but this is where you want to do your math and figure out exactly what your exposures are. Number one, so you can reduce risk in the appropriate areas and bring these costs down as low as you can. And then number two, know what your insurance coverage should be if you're doing all the right things and the bad thing happens anyway. Knowing what is actually going to cost your business so that you can have the appropriate amount of coverage. I'm not telling you to go out and get cyber liability insurance. Most businesses don't actually qualify for those policies. They'll sell you a policy, but when you need it, they find a reason to not cover you. So there's a lot that you can do yourself to reduce the risk and severity before you go out and get an insurance policy. Drop in the chat, A, B, C, or D. What do you think is the average cost of a data breach? This is just for the average US-based small business to deal with a data breach. What do you think the average is? Nicole says B, $1 million. Anybody else? The average is $4.5 million. The average cyber liability insurance policy is usually around $1 million. That's where we do those financial breakdowns for people. And we say, usually yes, Nicole, that is a lot of doll hairs. So you want to make sure that you have your actual cost, your financial exposure calculated so you can cover your business the right way. The lowest I've seen was a $225,000 response. That was for a non-HIPAA covered entity. This is for a kitchen and bathroom contractor. We do get calls outside of the ABA industry, do incident responses from time to time. This young lady had the idea that if she didn't keep a lot of money in her company bank account, she would be fine. When her QuickBooks Online got hacked, they got $13,000, overdrafted her account. And then she thought that was a bad day. Then she later figured out that, nope, this is going to cost another 200 grand because they got all the records from QuickBooks. These are low numbers because they're not HIPAA. There's not a lot of data out there for actual HIPAA covered entities. But when you start tacking on fines and obligations for reporting, you can imagine where these numbers go quickly. So let's talk a little bit about the CLI insurance. You want to make sure that eventually you get a cyber liability insurance policy. But basically what your cyber liability insurance policy is going to require is that you're HIPAA compliant first. So if they find anything that's out of compliance with HIPAA, they're going to wash their hands of you. They'll sell you a policy and take your money, but this whole game in the insurance market is about bringing money in, not putting money out. So they're going to find a reason to not pay out on a policy if they're able to legally. So let's break down a couple of ways that they do that. So most of you guys are probably with CPH, I'm guessing. Tell me if I'm wrong. If there's any other providers besides CPH, or if you're using CPH, drop that in the chat. I'm interested to learn more about that. CPH is one of the common ones we see. They have a cyber liability insurance add-on that's $15,000. And it's like $90 a year or something like that, right? Nicole said they're the cheapest. It's difficult to get insurance for your ABA therapy business already. And then here's another one that you really want to have covered as well. So CPH has the $15,000, but as you can see from our numbers, the actual cost of these breaches, that is a drop in the bucket. So we're probably going to need to look eventually at getting a separate policy for you. Once you have your risk managed, everything's kind of tightened down and you're handling it internally, then you can transfer that risk out. So here's some ways that cyber liability insurance companies will not pay. This is an example of the CLI add-on for your CPH policy. This is taken directly from there. Usually there's a $1 million, $3 million aggregate, and basically a security event, any of that stuff, it's going to be capped at $15,000. How do we not pay your claim when you call us and tell us you had a problem? Well, they put exclusions in their policies. This is the game. Collect premiums, pay claims as little as possible. They put vague stuff in their policies, like the letter D here. Failure to ensure the computer system is reasonably protected by security practices and systems maintenance procedures. They can argue that in court all day long. They have lawyers trained to argue this point. Even when you get a lawyer to represent you, it's a David and Goliath situation here, right? So you want to make sure that you are exceeding the requirements of your CLI policy before you actually go and pay for one. I think CPH is less than $90 to add on the $15,000 thing. So I wouldn't go through the trouble of canceling that if you already have it, but definitely don't bother adding it on unless you have everything aligned and you're doing your SRAs and you have a really solid compliance program in place. Another thing they like to do, we're talking about claim denials here, and this is something that started happening a lot. Cyber liability insurance policies have only been around for about the last 15 to 17 years. They started to get a really bad rap because, number one, when it first came out, the insurance companies started paying out tons and tons of money. They said, wait, we got to stop this. We got to stop paying out so many claims. So we need to start putting in ways that we can deny claims. Then they started getting a bad rap because they were just denying claims. At one point, I saw a statistic that said it was 9 out of 10 claims are getting denied for cyber liability insurance claims. So they got smart. We're not going to deny claims outright. We're just going to reduce coverage limits. This is an example of the period of neglect table for one of the cyber liability insurance companies. This has specifically to do with your patch management. You have to make sure that you're updating everything because these are the update limits and patch limits. If you're 0 to 45 days, you have full coverage. But as soon as something gets past 45 days, even if it has nothing to do with your incident, they can lower your limit. If they can find one device or one piece of software on one computer that hasn't been updated in a year, they can drop you from $1 million all the way down to 100,000. So this is how they're protecting themselves financially without actually denying claims. All right. We just had Sam Bryant, ABA-focused attorney who deals with a lot of HIPAA stuff. He came on our ABA Business Challenges group and did a talk about your BAA and the relationship of your company with your providers and how all that kind of works in HIPAA. Now, HIPAA has a part of it that's called HITECH. That's what our team specializes in at WOM. We zoom in on the technology side of things, but also with don't leave paper laying out on your desk. Make sure you have locks on your doors. So we do step into physical privacy and data protections as well. It was interesting to hear Sam's breakdown on the tiers. Basically, tier 4 is $50,000 to $100,000 per violation, and it's up to a $1.5 million annual cap. So they'll stop at $1.5 million. Isn't that nice of them? So they'll max you out at 1.5 million. So I'm sure most of us have at least 3 or 4 million in our bank accounts. We could probably just write a check and take care of that, right? I know you can sense the sarcasm there. Tier 4 is willful neglect. This is for companies that just haven't done anything or letting everybody use personal devices. The auditor has their own judgment that they're allowed to use. It's pretty subjective. They can go through your audit, your paperwork, your policies, and all that stuff. This bureaucrat is going to decide what tier your business belongs in. So what you want to do is make sure that you're not in tier 4 with the $50,000 to $100,000 per violation fines. Stay away from that $1.5 million cap. We're not talking about perfection here. We're talking about reasonable progress, some due diligence, right? Let's get your business into tier 1 or tier 2 as quickly as possible, hopefully in tier 1, where we can make sure that we're not at a business ending event. So getting from tier 4 to tier 1 is not as difficult as you might think. These are the common violations that we see in ABA. How many of you guys have a clinic? Let's just go at it that way. And then how many of you guys are in-home? Just post clinic or in-home in the chat. I'm interested to know. So we see a lot of these across different therapy settings. Some of them are specific, right? Group text and sharing logins is one that happens across the board. For in-home, the use of parents' Wi-Fi, right? I call it mom and dad's Wi-Fi. Mom and dad's Wi-Fi will take your business down, and it'll take it down quickly. So this is something you want to make sure that you're paying attention to. It costs a lot more money to secure a device to be secure enough to use on mom and dad's Wi-Fi. It costs more than just getting a data plan, right? To take a personal device that one of your RBTs or RBAIs or BTs, whatever you're calling your frontline employees that are going and doing those in-home services, it actually costs more to secure than to just get them one that you have control over. I know that doesn't sound realistic, but when you can go to Verizon and get an iPad that's brand new, a data plan for that iPad, you can get mobile device management from a company like ours for $5. You're going to spend $30 a month on an iPad with the data plan and all that stuff, where you're going to spend about $50-$60 a month securing one of your employees' devices or securing one of your own devices to use on Wi-Fi. But these are the types of things that we see in companies where it seems like an innocent shortcut. These are things that are going to catch up with everyone eventually. The quick action wins that you can take and go apply in these different areas are enforce multi-factor authentication everywhere. That is that second thing that you need besides a password. You have your username, you have your password, you need to have something else to allow you into that account. I prefer using authenticator apps over text message or email. Text and email can get hacked pretty easily. Using your Google Authenticator if you're on Google Workspace, using the Microsoft Authenticator if you're on Microsoft. There's a lot of authenticator apps that you can use. They're free. This is one easy way to do that. Creating a password policy. Sit down and write a password policy. It's required by HIPAA anyway. If you go through the Blueprint courses, we teach you how to build your own ChatGPT system to help you build things like this in the context of your business. Create a password policy, distribute it to your employees, have them sign and acknowledge it, and put it in your compliance folder. This is how a password should be created, how often it should be updated. Designate a compliance officer. Make someone in your company, even if it's you, responsible for your compliance program. Give them a program they can start working and doing where they can go into your systems and look and make sure that multi-factor authentication is enforced. Make sure that password policies are adhered to and that everybody has access to what they should have access to and doesn't have access to what they shouldn't have access to. Old employees are deleted, their access is terminated. Create a log and give that responsibility to the compliance officer. Even if it's you, this is not a big time commitment, but it shows that you're doing something, incremental progress. That's something you take away from this call for free and use it to get yourself from that tier 4 into tier 1 or 2. When you have an audit, they're going to want to see a few components. You want to have that policy that's already written. You want to have evidence or proof that that policy is actually being adhered to. Screenshots from your Google Workspace or your Microsoft that all users are required to have multi-factor authentication. Screenshots from your Alpaca account logins that show that multi-factor authentication is required. Or maybe it's not an option. I'm not sure exactly how they have that set up, but it might be required naturally. So you can show that too. Having logs where your systems are being checked by your compliance officer, date, name, the system they audited, what their findings were, what they changed. Maybe everything was good. Make a note there and continue on with that. And then the fourth and final thing on this list is the plan of action and milestones. At least having a plan where you have gaps that you've identified and having that gap analysis where you do the risk assessment, having a third party look at it, identify those gaps, and then your plan of action and milestones is your map of those problems and when you're going to take care of them. I'm going to keep cruising here because I know we're running short on time. If you want to start an SRA, this is what's required by HHS. You can hit that QR code. There are about 17 policies that are required by HIPAA. So you want to make sure that you have all these policies written. Like I said, if you're going through the blueprint courses, we build your executive assistant GPT with you, show you how to set that up, and that can help you generate a lot of these. If you want to do that and have us help you with any of it, like there's no commitment. We're happy to jump on a call with you and go through that with you. So this is a quick shot of the policies. Make sure that you have your policies. Go through the blueprint course. The foundation course is free. Jump in there, get that done, and create all these policies using your GPT in conjunction with the actual context of your company. Make sure that you're instructing, that you're modeling your system, show what secure behavior looks like, teach your team, and then making sure that your staff is rehearsing this and doing it in ways that are low stake, having little drills. A period at the end of a week where you're not using your practice management system, you are doing everything on paper. Real quick, we're going to go through what you want to make sure you recognize as a phishing email. The biggest things are misspellings, urgent, or overly emotional language. They want to hit your emotional triggers and get you to click on them. So anytime you feel rushed to click an email, don't click it. Always give yourself 20 seconds. Teach your team this. If they feel the need to click on an email and it's pulling them in, give it 20 seconds. Let's talk about our SaaS providers. This is not because providers are evil. There are terms and conditions they have to put out there to their clients to keep them safe. But I'm going to click through a couple slides quickly here. If you summarize all the terms and conditions for all the SaaS providers from practice management, Google, Microsoft, Zoho Mail, any of the cloud data storage, any of the providers that you work with, those three purple words at the top is what you really need to remember. You are responsible. Microsoft can lose all of your data. Adobe can lose all of your data. Their practice management system can lose all of your data, and they are not responsible. You are. So this is why you want to make sure that you have redundancy built into your systems, that even when something else goes down, your company's future is not dependent on it. You want to make sure that you have all of these bases covered, right? Aloha ABA, all the way down to Erasmus and Microsoft and Google, they're all the same. These are a couple of things that you just want to avoid. Neglecting risk assessments, get those SRAs done. Self-assess quarterly, have a third party come in annually. That will keep you covered and aware of what your gaps are. The second big one is not having staff training or reinforcement. The biggest breaches happen from a single slip up from a single employee. That is your first line of defense. So make sure that your employees are trained, and don't look at your HIPAA as an annual requirement. Educate your team. Make it part of your culture. We do it with weekly micro trainings, little 3 or 4 minute videos. Instead of slamming everybody with an hour or two of HIPAA education that's going to go in one ear and out the other, make it part of your company culture. Split it up. Have it always be part of every staff meeting, every team gathering. Not having your written information security program, that's that list of policies we talked about. Make sure that you have those and that you write them as things are. Write your policy and make sure that you're enforcing it, that you have evidence of it. And the biggest policy, the most important one for you and your business to really work out is your incident response plan. At least know who you're going to call, at least know what systems you're going to use while an incident is happening. And number 4, not having a data loss prevention strategy will kill your business. So strong policies, make sure you have the security awareness training in place, incident response planning. And then once you have all of that and you're passing your SRAs with flying colors and you're not finding any gaps, that's when you get cyber liability insurance. Zero trust is simple. We always assume that it's something bad coming into the network until we verify that it's not bad. So this is how you handle things like email security. Assume that every email is a bad email, inspect it, make sure that it's actually coming from the person that you're expecting, that it's in context, and give it that 20-second pause. Same thing with your computers. Make sure that if you don't know who that computer belongs to, that you don't let it in. And then I'm going to jump right to our contact us page, and we can go to some Q&A. I want to make sure that we get that in for you guys. If you do have any questions, just drop them in the chat. If you'd like to get with our team and talk about your company's security, either doing a security risk assessment for ABA, we do them really inexpensively, $197. All you have to do is the 1 hour call. We send you a link to click on 10 or so of your computers. We do another about an hour and a half, 2 hour call after going over your gaps. That will take care of your risk assessment and your plan of action and milestones. And then in combination with any incremental progress, most of which you can do for very cheap or free, start making progress down that road and at least get your business moved out of that tier 4 into the tier 1 or 2. That's our process. Reach out to us if you have any questions. Did you have anything, Michael, that you wanted to address specifically?
I don't think I have anything else. I think that was a really awesome overview of HIPAA, IT compliance. Any questions in the chat, please feel free to put them in here, or there's contact information up on the slides. Please reach out to either Derreck or me if you have any thoughts. We'll follow up with an email after this webinar, so you have both of our contact informations, a recording of this webinar, so we can deep dive later and share with your team. Thanks so much, Derreck, for your time and giving this amazing walkthrough. I learned so much, and I hope everybody else enjoyed it too. Thanks, everyone, and have a great rest of your day. Bye, everyone.
You're already doing the work, investing your time, your energy, and your vision. So let's make it count. Build something that works without breaking you. The EBCBA Blueprint is the way. Get started for free with our foundation course.